Hello there, I'm Nathalia Melo, your unfiltered fit BFF, mom of two turned CEO of a fitness empire. Someone who understands the struggles of trying to stay fit, sane, and sexy, all while juggling work, life, and motherhood. And this is the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast. Follow along wherever you're listening and join me weekly as I help busy working moms just like you simplify their fitness journey so they can lose weight, regain their confidence, and feel sexy AF. It's time to stop living in the what ifs and hiding from the cameras. It's time to regain control over your body, feel sexy naked, and wear a bikini confidently. People already see you as a super confident woman, but it's time for you to feel the same way too. Let's go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast. And today I have a dear friend of mine who actually, you're the first dude in the podcast. Apart from my husband, you're the first dude in the podcast. So he grew up as a competitive cross-country skier, basketball player, and dabbled a little bit in other sports and became a diehard fitness enthusiast. And about whenever he was like 20, which is like 5 years ago, just kidding. He is the host of the Lift Free and Diet Hard. I had to rehearse this one because I tried to say die hard a few times with Andrew Coates. He writes for major fitness publication, and I am pretty sure that you have probably read some of his stuff or have seen. Oh, we're going to talk about this guy very soon, including T Nation, Muscle and Fitness, Men's Health, Generation Iron. And he has a fluffy cat who I am a big fan, Ozzy, who legit is a legend of his Instagram. Welcome, Andrew Coates, to the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast.
Unfiltered is absolutely the correct way to explain you. And I'm honored to be the first male guest who's not your husband, which tells me that primarily your audience is female, which it does not shock me because I know that that's primarily what you coach. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited because oftentimes people are casting including casting stones at social media. But I think that if we look at how we kind of quote unquote met, it is a very good example of how awesome social media can be. Isn't it?
I remember Instagram will put at the top of your notifications if someone with a very large following who's verified follows you. And I see it, I'm like, Nathalia Melo Wilson just followed me. I know who Nathalia is. I remember Nathalia from bodybuilding magazines as Miss Bikini Olympia. I'm like, well, I'm going to say hi to her and I'm going to follow her back. So we got to chatting, hit it off. You are genuinely authentic and awesome. So we became very fast friends, obviously. And then one of my favorite things to do is to look for ways that how can I be of service and do cool things for other people. And again, like literally with everybody on the internet, there's no way I can individualize something positive for them. But I figured that, maybe more exposure than you already have would be valuable. And then got to talking, I had you on my podcast, and then I thought you would be perfect to collaborate on a T Nation article. And T Nation's a pretty darn big deal in the fitness space. And I had you do the videos and I wrote most of it. And anyway, it was a hit article. If anybody wants to read it, well, guess what? They can message you or me and we will send it to them and they would enjoy it. And a lot of it, that whole theme was something that I think is great. We see all of these fitness influencers, so we take the bad side of the internet, who built muscular butts and legs through traditional heavy lifting like squatting and deadlifting and lunges. And then they turn around and they're selling their body weight booty bullshit. And guess what? If you only have a home thing and all you could do is like body weight lunges, I promise you it's a million times better than being on the couch. And there's no shade at that. But it's the people who are grifting. These are fucking grifters who are saying, buy my program because I built my like Kardashian-esque ass with this body weight crap and I'm standing on a Bosu ball. It's like, this is rubbish. I get to be more unfiltered. I get to be more unfiltered here. We're going to have some fun. I got some fun for you today. And I hijack podcasts, by the way. I've hosted them for so long. I know where to go with these things. And we see this crap. So it's like, all right, let's actually get Nathalia lifting heavy and show people, here's how a Olympia champion built her legs. And let's dispense with this rubbish. And guess what? Everybody won. And then, so, we chat tons. And then I know that you're passionate about getting out and meeting more people in the industry and
Yeah.
more speaking and what have you. So I dragged you down to Raise the Bar where I spoke and introduced you to Dodd Saladino and Molly Galbraith and a whole bunch of other really great people in the industry.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, introduce you to my friends Nick and Derek who host the event. And next thing you know, you're now a speaker in Nick's online recovery and sleep summit, which is great because you have tons of experience of that. And guess what? Everybody wins. No one lost. This is not a zero-sum game to support people in the industry. You now have a ton of great connections. You got me here, so all these wonderful women are listening to my bullshit. Meanwhile, they're like, well, where's the female guest? No, I hope you guys enjoy. So, no, again, thank you. And you're easy to support because you also have your story, which I think everybody knows.
Yeah.
Like this legacy of like, okay, here's all of these reasons why I couldn't have done the thing that you're like, no, screw this. I'm going to do the thing, which is go to the gym every second month. I'm going to take the bus for 30 minutes, whatever I got to do. And the proof is in the result.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that the people who listen to you self-select. They're not people who lean on excuses. They're people who go, okay, I can't control this series of things. And instead, I'm going to work on the things I can. And here's another thing that I'm noticing. And I wanted to hijack it and do this. I notice in the industry, we have fitness professionals grifting. And I choose that word deliberately, grifting on certain narratives. One of those narratives that's starting to piss me off is we see people who have built physiques. They are lean. They're either naturally lean. They have my favorite word, this is sarcasm, the privilege of having a lean natural physique or a hard-worked natural physique. And again, whether or not it's actually natural, forget that part. That's not even relevant. And they've built a brand on ripped abs, being lean, being jacked. And now they're grifting on this narrative that, it's actually unhealthy. It's unhealthy to put in the time and the effort to try to look this way. Now, here's the thing. We do know that there is disordered eating behavior and quite frankly, fucking eating disorders that exist in that realm.
Yeah.
Now, I think that the idea that this stuff is, quote, caused by the industry, I think is a bit misleading because oftentimes the people who are already in that emotional place are drawn into the competitive side because they think it will validate something that's missing. And we know that there's problems there.
That's a very interesting. That's a very interesting point, Andrew. Can I interrupt you there just because I think
sure.
Because I really think that that is, it's kind of where how do I say this, where I see and what I see with the aftermath of very hardcore competition diet kind of style. Mm-hmm. And I think you'd be naive of us to say that there isn't some god awful coaching out there and enough, like plenty of monumental bullshit. On that same token, I do think that also there needs to be that layer of personal responsibility. I take full personal responsibility of not questioning the things that I was asked to do during my competition days, whether they're right or wrong, because ultimately it is my body. You know what I'm saying? So I do agree with the idea that there is the layer of validation, but I also like to see the other side that there are some god awful coaches out there. So with that message, what would you say that is kind of like the happy medium for somebody, because our industry is not regulated? So what would you say that it is for the public, for the general population who is not in the fitness space and is not able to filter what's bullshit and what is not, when you have somebody saying that sun on your butthole is what you need to have enough vitamin D, what would you be your advice for somebody who is coming and looking for a coach? What do they do? What should they do?
Long, complicated stuff with a lot of nuance. Fundamentally, it becomes you take responsibility for effort and action, or you're action oriented, and then you start looking for people whose messaging has empathy married with evidence. Now, of course, not everybody understands what's evidence-based and what isn't, but you start by exposing yourself to things that you don't necessarily feel like you know a lot about. And over time, you'll learn more about it and you'll start to realize, all right, what are the promises that are too good to be true? Because you're right, there are a
Yes.
lot of very unqualified, very unprofessional coaches. And you mentioned a concept that is relevant to this is the regulation of the industry. The industry will never be regulated.
Yeah.
And when people cry, we need more regulation,
Mm,
it's a victim narrative
I agree.
because it tells me that a coach is upset about all of the people who are operating, whether they're just internet influencers, so fitness influencers, to online coaches, to other coaches. And it tells me that they're frustrated because they're not as busy as they want to be. And they think that if some sort of legal body on every country in the world will come hammer down and prevent people from sharing messages that aren't perfectly evidence-based. And then who decides what's evidence-based or not? We know the problems with like censorship and regulation of shit and how badly that can go. So
Hmm.
let's not even get into that crap. And then all of a sudden, all of these influencers disappear from the internet. You think that somehow all of the clients that they have, you're entitled to them. You sitting there who have not done the thing to build brand and media and reach more people. You may be a great coach, but you're stuck in this attitude that you're entitled to something that you haven't gone out to get.
Yeah.
And so I largely discard that narrative. You know, my message is be better at attracting the eyes, speaking to those people, helping those people, meeting where they're at. Now, for the person who's trying to figure this stuff out, part of it is, and everybody listening, well, they self-select to you. They listen to your podcast. They know that you're that merger between no nonsense, evidence-based, the right amount of empathy with the right amount of calling you on your shit, which
Hmm.
again, that's not going to be for everyone. But I
No.
think it's really important that it is there for the people who self-select to that
Yeah.
unvarnished, unfiltered message. And I think it's the best answer. So
Hmm.
it really is still being responsible for your own outcome and being really wary of promises that seem too good to be true.
I absolutely love that because I really think that it has a lot to do with working with people that you can align. And that's one thing, that's one of the reasons why my messaging on social media is the way it is, because I know that I will struggle to work with somebody who cannot take my directness. So if they cannot take my directness, before they even become a member of our community, I know that it's going to be a challenging relationship because I do not operate with like the dancing around what the issue is. And that's okay. I'm perfectly fine with that. But whenever you say the taking the personal responsibility, agree with that. And what if it seems too good to be true? The thing is that there is so much too good to be true out there. And especially with AI technology, which I'm all for, but if used in the wrong way, it can be problematic. How do people see in like for somebody who is not in the industry, who is just like a mom who works an executive role and her job is not in the fitness industry. Like, I don't know how to build a fucking website. Does it mean that I'm stupid? If somebody comes to me and be like, hey, I can build a website in a day, and I'm like, awesome, see you tomorrow. But a web designer might come to me and be like, that is going to be awful. That is too good to be true. But I don't know because that's not my area of expertise. So, how do you feel like, what do you think that the solution would be to create that bridge and helping people understand what actually is the too good to be true?
Tricky answer because we have the curse of knowledge because we know all the things that someone else doesn't. So,
Yeah.
in your question, has empathy for the person who doesn't. I don't know if there is a really like laid out course. Here are all the things that are fact and evidence based. Here are the things that are not. I think it is even more fundamental than that. It's stop like letting yourself be lied to. Stop looking for the easiest answer and the easiest road. Now, that is not to say things have to be hard and grueling. There is a middle ground, but stop looking for the easy solution. I'm going to go back to what I started with too. Is like one of my big pet peeves is again these people who are sharing this message. Oh, it is healthy to be overweight, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we know that's a little bit more complicated. You can do a lot of active things to
Yeah.
improve your metabolic health, and over time you'll change your body composition. But there is a
Correct.
massive relationship on an aggregation of the population between their, hey, BMI, not very useful for individuals, very, very useful across populations. Across population, we have a disproportionate amount of poor metabolic health, obesity, and all this sort of stuff. Now, for
Yeah.
the individual who comes to us and says, hey, I don't feel good. I'm tired all the time. I'm out of breath when I walk up the stairs. I'm unhappy. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. I'm frustrated. Please help me. Do you know what the least empathetic message to say to that person is? It's okay. You're actually healthy. This is normal. Fuck off with that shit. And the people in our
Yeah.
industry who are grifting on that narrative, they are often, often building a brand and building status in their tribe by saying the thing that is masquerading as empathy when in fact they are lying to people. Now, it
I
does
have a
not
name
mean
for
the,
that. I have a name for that.
I want to hear it.
It's toxic body positivity.
There you go. Good. So now, this does not mean that the opposite end of the spectrum is good. The opposite end of the spectrum is a reason why toxic body positivity exists, because they're malevolent assholes too. So forget that shit. It's middle
Yes.
ground, and it's where what I say is it's evidence meets real empathy. Let's listen to the person. Let's listen to how they feel, and let's create something that actually helps them. Because oftentimes, if someone feels heard and feels seen, it's a first major step towards feeling like, okay, I have someone who supports me through this.
Yeah. So what should they be looking for? What kind of questions should they be asking? Because I am like, honestly, I didn't even know the direction that this podcast was going to go, but I absolutely love that you say that. Because one thing that I see, and I'm going to recap the question, but I just want to add something here, is that, there's like, oh, but it's fine. You need to love your body the way it is. And like, yes. But if
Yep.
you are unhappy, telling a woman that she should just love herself as it is and just let it be, you are gaslighting her true feeling. And then you're
Yes.
making those women, and I speak from women because that's the demographic I work with. You are basically telling those women that they have to accept living a miserable life where they don't take photos with their kids, they don't have sex with their husbands, they don't go on vacation, they don't play with their kids, they don't create memories, because that it just is, and it is not. So how can we bridge that?
I want to say a side note, because you're going to go crazy on this one in a good way. How goddamned privileged is it for someone who is lean and ripped, who has the things that all these other people want, to turn around and say, no, 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 you this can be unhealthy. You don't want this. This is, you are healthy. You need to be happy the way you are. How condescending is that rubbish?
Yes.
And
Yes.
you know what? Let's, as an industry, recognize that for what it is and stop buying into this crap. Because again, this is people who are really building brand and building status within a tribe, and it's a comforting lie.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, again, we also can't control, and I don't believe in policing what other people do. I really think, all right, let's control our messaging. And
Yeah.
again, evidence meets empathy. I don't know where to start with saying to the person who knows nothing, to say, listen, you need to do all these things. You need to know all these things. I think on our end of things, a fitness professional, it becomes, how do we actually create media that attracts those people? And for that person, it's, I think you do have to trial and error. You have to expose yourself to learning more about the industry. And maybe it's going to resources that are, again, how do you know what's verifiably evidence based versus not?
Yeah.
Tricky. But if you're listening to something like this, you're looking at people like Dr. Lane Norton. You're looking at people like Renaissance Periodization, Dr. Mike Isertel and his team. You're already following Nathalia, and you're looking at the people who are aligned, who are great resources on nutrition and evidence. You plug into those things, and then if you can figure out a base, you can spread out a little bit. Don't try to follow too many things. But if, as you expose yourself to more of this stuff, you get significant red flags, like someone starts selling you detox tea, or,
Yeah.
like, what are these things?
Waist
The
trainers.
wraps, waist trainers, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then you can say, okay, cool. Maybe this person isn't as good a source of information. It doesn't mean you have to necessarily throw someone out,
Yeah.
but maybe you just don't pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
And it does become being open to the discomfort of exposing yourself to knowledge that you don't yet have.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember who's responsible for this. I mean, this may be something out of Richard Feynman, or it may be somewhere else, but you go and you get into resources that are difficult, that are probably above your head, but you commit to it. You read through it. Maybe you go get, a nutrition book that, again, somehow you've been able to verify this is something evidence-based, whether it's my friend Adam Bornstein's new book. I'm going to shout this out because Adam is
Yeah.
brilliant. Adam does nutrition for Arnold Schwarzenegger, LeBron James, and Lindsey Vonn. Okay. Like, dude is
Mm-hmm.
credible. And he's ghostwritten some massive books in the industry. So he's got a book called You Can't Screw This Up. And Natalia, you would love it. Everybody else
Yeah.
listening would love it. Or you could go get Jordan Syatt's Eat It. Him and
Yeah.
Mike Vacanti wrote this. Or The Renaissance Diet 2.0. The RP people, Mike Isertel and his team did this stuff. Or you could get Fat Loss Forever by Layne Norton.
I love Fat Loss Forever.
It's a great book, right?
Yeah.
So get one of these things, okay? And then if some of the stuff feels a bit over your head, push through it anyway, because you will learn a lot. And then you continue to learn more. And over time, you'll realize, wait a second, this stuff is clicking. I'm getting it. I've got more of a foundation. And it's taking the responsibility to say, I'm going to push through and I'm going to expose myself to things that make me uncomfortable and feel a bit confusing, because this is what will inoculate you against misinformation or cleverly packaged dishonesty wrapped in what is masquerading as empathy.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I have a few like kind of hard rules that I like to tell people. If somebody is promoting like skinny tea detox bullshit, no. If somebody is, promoting something extreme as far as, oh, we 500 calories a day, probably not that ain't it. And another thing that I look at is people who are telling you to cut out complete food groups. Oh, you have to remove all the sugar in your diet. Okay. And then what happens after that? Like, because I think that that's where there is a big disconnect, is that people are looking for the results now, but what they don't understand, that the majority of the population does not have a problem with losing weight. The problem is navigating on how to keep it off and accommodating that new body that they have with the lifestyle that they want to live. And it's not for me or for you to tell what that lifestyle is going to look like, but whatever it is that they choose to do with their fitness needs to fit with their reality. If they have kids, if they like to travel and things like that.
The thing I like to point out to people, I think a lot of people are scared to let go of their comforts. And they think that they will see people even like you and I, because they see people who are functioning at a very high level of fitness. It's very entrenched in who we are. And I think a lot of fitness professionals forget that we want different things. We function at a different level than the vast majority of even the casual or the enthusiast will. So let's set that aside. But I think that a lot of people are scared that they will have to let go of the things that they enjoy. Now, two things. One, I think you have to take a hard look and remember, why do you want to change? Because you're not happy. You don't feel very good. So A, is life really that fucking great in the first place? Okay, let's challenge that. And two, when you start and it's hard at first, and then when you get going and you notice that you feel better, you never want to go back.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is rooted in finding resistance training, strength training, something that makes you feel stronger, that'll improve your energy levels, which can be a great complement, a linchpin habit to nutritional change. And then if you don't do anything extreme and you notice that, wait a second, I've increased my protein intake. I'm trying to choose lean sources of protein to build every meal around. I am eating a little bit more fruit and vegetables. And here's one of my favorite tactics. I've been sharing this one a lot, so I want to share this. I like to put food, nutrition, into 3 buckets. Okay. Bucket 1 is realizing that there's actually a lot of home cooked stuff that we really like, right? Whether it's baked salmon or chicken stir fry, or there are vegetables that you guys like. So delineate between this arduous, performative, fitness professional meal prep on Sunday with a full counter stuff that tortured them for 6 to 8 hours. That's nonsense. That's complete rubbish. We can be much more efficient with our time. You can find strategies where you can pop a few things in the oven, time it. You can have options that are relatively minimal prep, or you can have things that are more elaborate. And yes, if you're cooking for a family and maybe the kids are picky, I get it. Figure out something that intersects, cook more of it, scale it. It's time efficient. All right.
Yeah.
So build around the bucket one of all this stuff that, hey, it's pretty healthy. You enjoy eating it. You're actually fairly fulfilled by it. And then bucket 2 and 3 are the higher calorie things. Bucket 2 is all of the mediocre crap that you consume out of convenience because you didn't plan ahead, you weren't prepared. So it's the fast food on the run, it's the mediocre frozen stuff.
Yeah. Which I find it interesting because whenever you think about like higher calorie with fast food, I don't know how it is in Canada because, by the way, Andrew is in Canada, but we have here a fast food chain called Chick-fil-A, and it's supposed to be like healthier or whatever. The line at Chick-fil-A takes longer than you take me to.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you're
To go out,
defeating. There's nothing fast about it. It's slow. It's quicker for me
absolutely.
to make it at home.
Right. And of course, food delivery apps are kind of this insidious way to bypass this. So delete those things. I'm like vicious about it. Get rid of them. Just they shouldn't be an option. I function like the old days where you could literally call and order Chinese food or pizza. That's it. Those are treats, right? So bucket 2. And actually, this is one of my favorite examples of like the bucket 2 stuff is when you're in the mall food court and you see the Chinese place and it's like, oh, that looks good. Mall food court Chinese food is garbage. It is always terrible. It's mediocre. It always feels awful. You regret having spent the money on it. You regret burning the calories on it. And you feel crappy. And then you turn around and you still want bucket 3, which are the treats, the non-negotiable foods that you love. And you identify that and you split up those two groups because what happens is a lot of people think, well, they have to give up all their favorite bucket 3 stuff, which is why they emotionally resist. So guess what? Keep that stuff.
Yeah.
You gotta have adult boundaries around this. I mean, like this whole idea of like ice cream for breakfast, that probably doesn't work. Okay, like let's be adults
daily.
here.
Listen, if I'm hungover, I might have a slice of cake, but that's a whole different story. But like as a hard rule of thumb, like you're not gonna expect to have ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day and be shredded.
No.
Like it's just not realistic.
And no sane person is trying to do this. But again, we know that there are people who struggle with food skills.
Yeah.
We know that there are the environments that you grew up in with your parents. Like I'm not dismissing the fact that everybody's experience is different and this is more challenging for some people. So I'm trying to give a simple filter and framework that you guys conceptualize within to help you. So the stuff in bucket 3, the stuff you love, like I really love apple pie. And I go through phases where I will eat them more consistently and then I won't have one for a while. We don't need it all the time. I'm currently on Dairy Queen Blizzards, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, Dairy Queen Blizzards. These things I like. They're wonderful. And it got a little out of hand for me. Now, I'm a big guy. I can handle a lot of calories, but it was out of hand for me. So I set a boundary. I said, I get one a week on Saturday afternoons after my heaviest leg day of the week. And it's a great boundary that I can live with because I get to look forward to it. So looking forward to the treats in bucket 3 keeps them special. You get rid of the bucket 2 stuff and you build around mostly bucket 1. This is literally just 80-20 nutrition, which is really good. And if you take a look at this and you just work on removing as much of the bucket 2 stuff, which is not fulfilling anyway.
Yeah.
You let yourself have your bucket 3. Then all of a sudden you realize that, wait a second, I feel better. My energy's better. My clothes are fitting differently. I am liking what I see in the mirror. I'm liking the way people interact with me. I get to keep the stuff that I treasure. I actually really enjoy the healthy stuff that I'm preparing on my own. And I'm enjoying the experience of going to the gym 2 to 3 times a week to lift weights. And you notice you're like, there's no fucking way in hell I would ever go back to the way that I was living before or how I was feeling before.
100%. I love that idea. And I love because the thing is that it doesn't demonize foods. We're just allowing people to make choice. And I think that that's where a big problem is that people, the general population as a whole, are so like the ladies who listen to my podcast, they're very educated. You know, they have some level of understanding of fitness, and I'm very grateful that my listeners are smart individuals that tend to not believe a lot of the bullshit. But I think that it is important to keep on making that education. That I don't think that's my prerogative. I don't think that it is my job as a coach to allow or not allow somebody to do something. It is my job as a coach to educate people on what is and allow them to make the decision on what they believe is best for them based on the knowledge that I've given them. Because I think that that's where true changes happen. And I think that that's very similar to these buckets idea.
Absolutely. A good coach asks a lot of questions. If you really want to become a great coach, you learn about asking better questions and you try to catch yourself and turn off this instinct to always go, I have the answer. Let me prove how smart I am. Let me prove how valuable
Yeah.
I am to you as a client. Hey, here's my advice. It's called The Advice Trap. Right? There's a great
Yeah.
book called The Coaching Habit. And anyone listening, like you're going to have conversations in your work, your life, dealing with fucking kids, that this
Mm-hmm.
stuff will be relevant to. So Michael Bungay Stainer, the Coaching Habit. And then he wrote a second book that goes into more on the advice trap. Do not do the audiobook of the advice trap. And I feel bad for saying this, but this guy, he admits it. He shouldn't have audioed it because he's got a way of speaking that is very hard to understand. I'll leave it at that. He should have just let someone else do it. But the first book, someone else does the audio. Great audiobook. And experienced coaches generally know that if we tell people what to do, it doesn't usually work very well. But if we ask a ton of questions and the person realizes and decides what they're going to do, they
Yeah.
usually execute on it better. That's just
Yeah.
like everybody here listening is female, I'm assuming, right?
Majority.
Majority. All right. So let's talk to the women here. When was the last time, if you have a male partner in your life, when they told you what to do, how well did that go? How well were you compliant with that? My guess is probably not,
Nope.
right?
Hard
But
pass.
I bet you some of you guys actually have some pretty clever husbands and boyfriends and partners who actually listen to you and they will present things in such a way that you choose. Now, they might be smart enough that they get what they wanted all along, but they're just clever enough to make sure that you feel like you're the one choosing. Or maybe they're smart and just realize that you're the boss. You let you decide what you want. And life is simpler that way. But either way, people are more likely to act on things if they're the ones choosing to do it.
I love that. And that's very true. And I'm a big believer of that because I remember when I was being coached by in a past life, like I would ask questions and it was like, just stick to the plan. And I'm like, I am, but I need to understand like these questions that I have. And that's kind of why I made my program the way that it is, the Powerhouse Academy, because I want people to know and understand what's happening where. I think that is very valuable. And with that being said, Andrew, you mentioned a few books at the beginning about helping people get educated, but I find that what happens oftentimes is that people have this false sense of expertise because they follow a whole bunch of smart people on social media, which I'm all about it, but it's kind of like I am not a baker. If somebody comes in my house, but I love watching cooking shows. My guilty pleasure, FYI, if you didn't know, I love competition cooking shows. But if somebody comes to my house and drop off flour, butter, cocoa, and all the shit that you need, sugar that you need to bake a cake, I don't know how to bake a cake. I know that those are ingredients to bake a cake, but I do not have the recipe. And I feel that right now that's what's happening with social media because although we have an abundance of access to information, we also have one of the highest rates of obesity in the United States. And I'm pretty sure that Canada is not too far behind.
We're
So,
pretty close.
yeah, it's like, we're almost there, man. So, yes, I love the idea of following these smart folks because then you're going to be able. But what's your take on this false sense of security that most people are developing, thinking that they can do it just because they have the pieces, but they don't know how to put it together because they've done a competition in the past or because they follow Lane Norton or me or you?
There's something fundamental to this. It's a perfect question because I wrote an article in 2019, definitely geared towards fitness professionals, but it relates to this. I actually, just by coincidence, republished on my website today. So it's perfect timing. And it's the concept of consumption versus creation. And think about it this way. A lot of the activity of consuming knowledge is an emotionally soothing way of procrastinating from doing the thing. So
Yes.
it's about identifying where you're doing something that soothes your discomfort with your current state. You feel productive because I hate, and sometimes it means it's always reading the book or reading the articles or scrolling the social media for the people you like. Now, there's value in that. We know that. But at a certain point, you put that stuff down and you get on the treadmill, you get boots in the gym, you get in the kitchen, and okay, it's applying these skills. So you often hear people like, I will consume a lot of books. And then there are the people who, on the other end of the spectrum, are like, oh, that's stupid. You should read one book multiple times. And then you got to memorize. First of all, we don't need to memorize books anymore. They're literally resources. But you also still have to apply the lessons from the book. So let's apply the lessons from whatever you're consuming. And I think that's the message. If you watch the cooking show, I mean, like competition cooking stuff is entertainment. Let's also delineate the fact that that's okay, because it's okay to enjoy entertainment for entertainment's sake. It always doesn't have to be productive. Okay. And in busy culture, we struggle with that. I struggle. I admit that I struggle to sit down and enjoy things that I went too far with not watching TV. Like, there are classic movies. I'm like, oh, I love that movie. I want to watch it. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I would be a waste of 2 hours. I should be working on something. And then you catch
Yeah.
yourself, you scroll for 45 minutes fucking around, right?
Yes.
So catch it, recognize when you're doing that shit. But at the same time, I'm pretty forgiving because I'm pretty good at the action-oriented side of stuff. So if you like cooking shows, okay, turn the cooking show on, get the shit you need, put it right on in front of you, put the show on the laptop, and get to cooking. Maybe it's, okay, you read the article about some sort of fitness thing, and then you go and you literally make some notes and you go and do the workout. And as long as there's a bias towards action, instead of just sitting in this emotionally soothing lie that you're doing something useful, but all you're ever doing is learning. And then at a certain point, it becomes overwhelming and confusing because, as you pointed out, yes, there's a lot of seemingly confusing shit on the internet. So, two, I think we also have to triage down just what we're consuming. We don't need to follow 400 fitness accounts on the internet. Now, I do, because guess what? I'm in a unique position within the industry where a lot of it's like industry friends, people I know,
Yeah.
and it's like knowing about who's who, because I do things like host a conference and have a podcast, and I kind of need to know what's going on to be able to share and support people in the ways that are best. But for the average consumer, they don't need to be following 400 fitness accounts. Trim it down to the 20 to 30 even, or even less, that really speak to you, and act on the messaging.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Be biased towards action. And part of that is to plan. So put shit in your calendar. Say, okay, I'm gonna go to the gym 3 times this week, Tuesday evening, Thursday evening, and Saturday afternoon. That's in my calendar. That's non-negotiable. Hey, I'm gonna go do my cooking run on. For me, I do a Costco run on Friday when I leave. I have an early day. I go work out, and then on my way home, I grab my Costco run because it's convenience on the way. Then, if I'm doing, say, one of my bulk cooks for the week, I usually do that on Sunday evening when I've got some time. I'll pop on a podcast I'm enjoying or an audiobook, and I will, throw this stuff on the oven. And then I've got everything timed, so I can sit down and I can either watch TV, I can play a video game, or I will like work on a course that I'm working on, something like a little bit of work, or do some online updates, right? And I feel productive that way. But I've planned ahead and I've developed a routine around this. So there's not a lot of friction. A lot of this stuff is, how do we remove the friction? How do we identify where there's friction? Where's there discomfort? Where is there a default to inaction? And let's make the process a little bit more straightforward. Let's remove the obstacles. Let's remove the friction. And this is really important, is as time passes, foster an identity around the goals that you have. So if you used to be more active, used to be more fit, cooked healthier, played sports, whatever, get in touch with that identity. Or if it's never been part of who you are, discard the identity, this fixed identity that, oh, I'm not the person who goes to the gym. I am not the person who does this. I am not this. I like this exercise. I want you to picture yourself 5 years from now. I've got a post I keep sharing from time to time. Picture you in 5 years or 10 years or 30 years, an older you, and not just like, oh, this abstract concept in the future that we don't care about. Picture the person that you will be. And that person is completely at the mercy of every choice you make today. It doesn't mean you have to be flawless, but it means that the bulk of the decisions have to bias towards, are we going to make for a better future for that future you? You see the human. This is example. When you watch commercials from World Vision about starving children in Africa, they don't whip statistics at you. They show you video of the kids.
What is?
Because a million, I can't remember the exact saying, but like 1 million is a statistic, but one person is a tragedy. And there's a reason for that, because it tugs on our heartstrings. So tug on your own damn heartstrings. Picture you later on in life. let's say the person listening here is 40 years old, okay? Right? I'm 45. So let's say the person's 40. And picture you in 30 years, 70. Look around at most of the 70-year-olds that you know. How many of them have difficulty with mobility? What's it like getting up and down off the toilet? Or maybe they're a little bit older than that. How metabolically healthy are they? What kind of health issues are they dealing with? Some of those things are totally beyond the control of lifestyle, but some of them are very related to lifestyle.
Yeah.
And how can you engage in behavior today that improves the chances that that 70-year-old version of you has better metabolic health, better musculoskeletal health, because that's going to be a very big concern as we get older, right? And honestly, do you care about that future you? Now, the terrifying answer, some people will say no, because some people are in this really dark place where they don't. Like, that's a deeper thing that's probably beyond the scope of what we can do here. But for the rest of us,
That's above our pay grade for the
that's way
purpose.
above our pay grade, right? That's a different conversation. And then maybe there's going to have a conversation with a person that can help you with that stuff.
We
But
have
for
that in the
everybody
program,
else,
FYI.
right?
We have
See,
a counselor
brilliant,
in my
right?
program.
Brilliant, right? Like, you cover that base, right? Having the right resources, knowing where to send people, right? Empathy, right? And professionalism. So, but if you can hone in on this future self and you can build identity around healthier lifestyle behaviors, I think these are powerful tools and frameworks to operate within that might be the thing that helps you at a point where you are facing a lifestyle decision, because you will have lots of them and it gets fatiguing to make them all. But at a certain decision, and maybe that decision is, am I going to go to drive and stand in line in Chick-fil-A, or am I going to cook at home? Well, can you make the next decision in front of you a good one? And here's where this matters. On a weekend where you feel like you've been off track, you did good during the week, it's cliche. Friday evening, okay, cool, you got into some drinks with friends, whatever, and then it's like turns into street pizza or whatever sort of shit falls apart. Then you beat yourself up. You're like, okay, I blew it. I might as well just do whatever. Number one, you're giving yourself permission to fuck up, okay? Like, that's blunt, but it's true. You've given yourself permission to have a free-for-all for 2 more days in the hopes that you'll reset on Monday. And if we keep doing that, we know we do a lot of damage over time if we behave this way. So instead, let's go, okay, cool. I can't control this. Feeling a little guilty, don't give a shit about. But we got to get off the shame loop and the shame narratives, because shame is a really negative reinforcer. So if you get caught in this language of, I can't, I'm a failure, I suck at this, I can't do this,
You start to believe it.
you believe it. You got to change that identity, and we got to change the way we use language. You can say, you know what? I did something that wasn't on plan, right? But this is not who I am. I am in the process of growth. I am in the process of change and evolution. So can you make the next decision good? Can you get up on Saturday morning when you're feeling a little rough and have a big glass of water and cook a healthier breakfast and say, I'm going to make this a really good lunch. I'm going to go do something active. And then how does that feel versus just diving into whatever garbage that you can eat over the course of the weekend because you've given yourself permission to do it? Recognize that it's within your control. You are absolutely 100% giving yourself permission to do this.
Andrew, can I interrupt you here, because I love that you're talking about this, because it is so incredibly aligned with my messaging of taking control of what you can control. But one thing that I'm noticing is that you have this incredible, like there, and this is going to be kind of like almost a two-tiered question. So one thing that I'm seeing is that there's some people that are already kind of like giving up. They're like 40 years old. And I'm like, you still have at least, I don't know, like 36 years in you, if we're going by the statistics of life expectancy of in the United States. Again, I'm using data from the US. And at 40, they're already kind of like accepting, oh, I've tried everything. And there is that messaging and that feeling of hopelessness, like, how do you say hopelessness, that they've tried everything and nothing works, and what is the point? And I believe that that is the biggest hurdle to begin change, because and I think that kind of almost becomes that problem with the abundance of information. It's an abundance of information that is not properly applied. Like, for example, if you give me tools to build a house, I am going to do a fucking god awful job because one, I'm not an architect. And two, I don't know how to even freaking build an IKEA side table. So, and because they keep on failing by trying to do things at a very lower capacity and with a very low level of support, they feel that they're a failure, and then becomes that hopelessness that I don't believe that it even becomes a struggle to make that kind of exercise that you're talking about, which I think is incredibly valuable. But they're already in such a state of loss of hope that even to get to that, there needs to be something to meet those people where they're at. Like I was speaking with a lady who is, I don't know, 58 years old, and she was already like, "That's it. I've accepted that this is it." And I'm like, "No, you have 5 grandchildren. Girl, let's slay." So again, I think it kind of comes back to the abundance of information. And I think that it is very important and correct. Like, see if you agree with me. I'm going to make a statement and I want you to, and don't be afraid to, I know you're not, but I think that that's the point where you ask for help. Because if it is getting to the point where you're losing hope in life because you've been trying to poorly apply the bullshit that you're consuming from social media that you do not know how to properly execute and is giving a feeling of that's it, I think that that's the time for you to reach out for help. Thoughts?
I think the people who are overwhelmed with information are a piece of the puzzle. I think there are a lot of different places people come from. If we want to really get down to a cliche, I think that the pain of staying the same has to reach a point where it's greater than the pain, the discomfort of change, right? Here's a related concept. It's a little tricky, but we can't save everybody, right? And we will drive ourselves crazy trying to save everybody. I think we can, on our side of this, we can do the best job we can at sharing great information, letting people see both the person and the knowledge that resonates with you, the person listening, consuming, to where you go, hey, I like this. And then you get someone into I hate the word funnel, but a funnel of, before they're really contemplating change, pre-contemplative. And then it moves them along a spectrum or something goes on in their life to where they all of a sudden start contemplating it. They start thinking about it. And then they get to a point where they are ready to change. If you get into resources like motivational interviewing, where you get things like sustained talk versus change talk when you're talking to people, if you start noticing that there's more change talk, we grab onto the change talk and we focus people on the fact that, wait a second, you are using language that you want to change. And then it is building trust and having empathy for that person one at a time that we've already got the relationship with. And I think that can cut through the information overload. It's the person, their responsibility is to decide, hey, I want
Real
something
change.
different. I want real change. And then, yes, it's then you go and you get help. You get a resource and you trade money for
Time, literally.
time and efficiency. Yes, because what hasn't been working? Spending a lot of time consuming a lot of different things that are confusing you and leaving you in a state of inaction. Maybe you feel productive because you're consuming.
I call it mental masturbation.
It's absolutely. And you trade that behavior in with some of your money and plus, when you spend money on things, you have skin in the game. There is a much greater incentive for you to act when you are paying for something, which is why a lot of free coaching doesn't really work very well because people don't value it.
Correct. 100%.
And it's why, on the coaching side of things, if any coaches are listening, it's why you do not turn yourself into a commodity by charging a bargain price for your services.
I don't want to be cheap. That's so funny you say that. I say, if somebody comes to me, they're like, I'm like, if you're looking for cheap, I'm not it. I don't want to be cheap because I am very emotionally invested in helping my people. And if I am not going to put my emotion and my mental capacity into somebody who does not give a fuck, and you're going to show me that you give a fuck by opening your wallet. That's it.
And there's a lot of truth to that. And yes, I am empathetic to the fact that not everybody has the same level of resources. This is also why people like yourself and me, we do have a lot of free resources and we do point to other good people in the industry. Now that almost seems to contradict what we're saying about consuming things and not acting.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who have acted very successfully off of a mountain of free information that's out there, and they've been able to cherry pick. I am one of those people for a very long time throughout my
Mm-hmm.
early life living, and even in early in my my career as a coach. And I still think that at a certain point we can put our best foot forward. We can create compelling media. We can create compelling educational resources. And at a certain point, people have to choose to self-select to want to work with us. And anybody listening here has made a choice to patronize you and your messaging and your media. And I bet you some of those people are your clients. I bet you some of them are past clients who've been successful. And I bet you some of those people are people who are really enjoying you, but may not yet be in the place where they are truly contemplating investing in that change.
Yeah.
I bet you there are people who are in that thought process. And maybe this is the inflection point to send Nathalia a message and say, hey, I want to have a conversation.
Yeah.
I am working towards being ready, blah, blah, blah.
And I think it's powerful that you're saying this, because at the time of this recording, this is, the time where kids are off school and stuff like that. And I have all these people oh yeah, I'm going to wait until the kids go back to school. And I'm like, how many more summers are you going to, because here's what happens. Kids go back to school. Oh, I can't do it right now because, all the money that I spend on kids going back to school. And the next thing you know, it's Halloween. And then you know what happens after Halloween. And then it becomes the holidays, and then it's going to be next year. And it just becomes on that cycle. At what point does it stop with the, I wait?
Well, I got a very easy one for that, and then I'm virtually out of time. Alex Hormozy has a post that I really like. I like Alex's media. I won't be able to rattle it off verbatim, but it's essentially this. If you say you're going to wait until you have more time to do the thing, whether it's the fitness stuff, whether it's something about, building a business, starting a business, coaches, starting various other pieces of the brand you want to build, you are literally saying that when life gets busy again, which it will, okay, then you are giving yourself permission to stop and to not continue the behavior. So the only
Yes.
answer is if it's important to you, is you start now. You start when you're busy. You plan it. You build it in. You set a boundary around it. It's non-negotiable. It is a priority. And you execute on it while life is busier, because you are more likely to build the skill, because it's a skill to make a priority of it when it's hard. So you develop that skill. If life gets easier, cool, you have a bit more bandwidth or what have you, but it's still entrenched. And then when shit gets crazy again, guess what? It's a skill that you can sustain. And
Yeah.
it's that mindset. So I can't stress this enough. Start when you're busy. Start when it's hard.
Yeah.
You set yourself up for success.
100% agree. I love that, Andrew. And it is so true, because even like whenever I look at my most successful, one of them are phenomenal members. Pam has lost over 70 pounds, and she started like a few weeks before Thanksgiving, when anybody in their right mind would be like, oh no, I'm going to put it off. But she knew. And then she was telling us that she spoke to all her friends who had postponed, and they still have not started. And it's June at the time of this recording. So we're 6 months halfway through the year, and they are still waiting for the perfect time. And I feel that's a trap that people keep on going. So I'm going to ask one more question. I'm going to let you go because I want to be mindful of your time. So, because you are a very smart guy, but on the same token that you are smart, you are somebody who is still willing to learn. And I think that that's a fallacy that a lot of people who are not experienced in the fitness industry fall into. Oh, I know what to do. I know what to do. And I'm like, but do you though? Oh yeah, I did a fitness competition like 15 years ago. And whenever I was a person, I'm like, oh, so you're telling me that you're one fitness competition and you're like 2 year stunt as a personal trainer at LA Fitness. No shade, but hello. Is enough knowledge and expertise to help you navigate this new stage of life. So what would you say to somebody who keeps on feeding themselves into their bullshit, that they know everything that there is to be known, especially for you who is a speaker, who knows a lot of very smart and competent people who probably still look at it as still having room to learn and to grow? What would you say to somebody who has this mindset?
It's rooted in your identity. You either have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. You are someone who is a lifelong learner who enjoys, it's not just about having the knowledge, it's about enjoying the process. I just finished my friend Joel Jameson's certified conditioning coach. Joel is the ultimate authority in the world on conditioning and energy systems. I don't know how many women here are fans of the UFC and mixed martial arts. However, if any of you do know, Joel has worked with some of the biggest champions in UFC history, including a fighter named Demetrius Johnson. So anyway, Joel is the real deal. And I had beta tested the nutrition certification that Renaissance Periodization had put together. So I beta tested part of it like a year and a half ago. And so those guys are friends of mine. So Nick Shaw gifted me the full certification. So I just started. I'm a little bit behind in this cohort. I'm crushing through it. When that is done, I will be starting Prescript Level 1 because Muscle Doc Jordan Shallow and his team are pals of mine, because I really want to go and do a little bit more depth of stuff on some of the biomechanics side, because there's a lot of rubbish biomechanics on TikTok and Instagram. So I
Facts.
actually like what these guys are doing. So I'm like, all right, cool. I want to do that. And then I probably have something else. I'm binging books and what have you. And I figure out ways to build this stuff into my life and my time, because my identity is someone who enjoys learning. Also, I have boundaries around creating the presentations for speaking events or writing the stuff I'm writing or my own podcasting, etc. I have to go record an episode literally in less than 20 minutes. So there's also action orientation built into my schedule as a boundary for things I need to get done as well. Now, I also sleep, I coach full time, my
Yeah.
workouts are non-negotiable, but I'm efficient in the way that I go about these things. Now, I don't like shame-based narratives that say, hey, we all have same 24 hours in the day. Everybody's life is different. But I do think you can build the things in that matter the most. And then over time, you just find you get a little bit better at sneaking more shit in that matters. So it's identity. It's, I choose to believe that, okay, I think I am very good at a lot of things based on experience and education. However, I am interested in being better. Fixed mindset people tend to hide within places that validate how much you tell them that they're great, they're intelligent, they're smart, they're successful. And then they don't step out into challenges or spaces that make them feel like, oh, wow, there are things I'm not good at. I routinely, metaphorically or literally sit at a table of my good friends in the industry who are, quote, 7-figure business owners, whether it's your Luca Hosevars, your Don Saladinos, your Nick Shaws, Mike Dola, on and on and on. People like you who have massively successful businesses. And I personally still, everything is one-on-one with me. So I am a 6-figure business person at the table with 7-figure fitness business people. And that can be intimidating, or it can be something you go, I want to surround myself with people who are successful and learn from them. I have a regular call with Mike Dola because Mike's the guy who built Stronger You into this gigantic entity and sold it for a lot of money to Anytime Fitness, and now is at home raising his 2 kids, just a newborn. But he wants to get and figure out what's the next thing to do. And here's the cool thing. In our discussions about my development, we've turned around and I'm the one who's mentoring him on building out brand and media and exploring the next direction. So it's mutually beneficial. So I'm exposing myself to conversations, people, and environments that challenge me, make me realize I don't have it all figured out,
Yep.
and make me hungry to get better. And the same can be true for everybody
Fitness.
in their own fitness journey. So a lot of this stuff is attitude, identity,
Yeah.
and the willingness to be a bit uncomfortable now, delayed gratification in order for a better future, instead of living within a low grade discomfort because you're not willing to make it a little tougher short term to be happier, feel better, and have more options in the future.
I love that. And it's something that cracks me up whenever it's like, well, I don't need a coach because I've won my national competition 25 years ago. And I'm like, cute. I won the Olympia. I still have a coach. And I can guarantee you right now that I do not know everything. So it's kind of like that idea that you have everything. And for that reason, you don't need help. I would never be where I am right now without the help of coaches that I have allocated in different aspects of my life. And I think that is a great deal of arrogance for you to think that you know all the things, that you do not need help and support from other people, especially when you find yourself in a place that you know that is not a place that makes you happy. Like it's a level of arrogance. And I'm like, okay, whenever you take that off, come back, and then we'll chat again. All right, Andrew, I want to be respectful of your time. Any last words for our listeners on what you believe in as far as the fitness industry goes? What has been your biggest learning lesson on your decades of experience that you find that would be beneficial for somebody listening?
I'll leave with this because I think the stuff we talk about speaks for itself. If you look at the world and the people that you interact with a mindset of, I want to share, I want to support, I want to give. Now, real quick caveat. The moms and the caretakers, this cannot be used as an excuse to put yourself last. This is one of these narratives that is very prevalent, is there is shame in somehow doing kindnesses for yourself, which it means cooking, eating good, healthy food, or going and working out for fear that you will feel shame within communities where other parents are judging, other family members, etc. At some point, you have to discard that crap. Recognize it for what it is, discard that crap, and do what's better for you, because you, as the caregiver, as the parent, will have more energy, bandwidth, and be able to do it if you actually keep yourself physically and emotionally healthier, which means, and I know young parents sleep, that's challenging, but overall, the effort to maximize sleep, good quality nutrition, and exercise, you're in a better position to be a caregiver. Now, that being said, with the way that you interact with the world, if you are of an abundant mindset and want to share and support other people, then I find that the universe just simply gives back to you. And that is what's happened in my career. I can't count the number of podcasts people have been nice enough to ask me on. I have made so many great friends who would, all I have to do is shoot a text and be like, hey, I need to ask you a question or I need some help. And people literally line up. So as an example, everybody listening, okay, you're listening, you love Nathalia. She's radiant. She's got, a larger than life personality. You gravitate to what she does, right? So how can you do a little bit of a give back? Take this podcast, share it with one friend in your world, someone that you think needs a little bit of tough love and a kick in the pants, and say, this you would enjoy. Okay, share it. Go. If you're a longtime listener and you haven't done the review yet, go do the review. Okay, seriously, make sure if you're driving, just remember, make something like red light, make it out, but go do the review after. It'll take minutes. And if someone from my media is listening to this because you found it on my media, then scroll through, look at the other guests Nathalia's had, check out some of the other stuff, especially if you really like Nathalia's energy. And I'll tell you to do this. Natalia, it was a little while ago, but was a guest on my podcast, Lift Free and Diet Hard. Go listen to that episode because then she's the one in the hot seat and gets to express stuff. And you may enjoy and you get to explore more of Natalia's stuff. So Nathalia, thank you for having me on. I treasure you. You are wonderful. And for everybody listening, thank you.
What's the link for your what people to find you, Andrew? Just so we obviously it's going to be in the show notes, but
Instagram. I put everything I do on Instagram at Andrew Coates Fitness. COATES. I need you to find, if you have questions, I respond to everything.
He might respond with a voice note, by the way.
I might, yeah. And then the funny thing is, I'll send a 10-second voice note, and then someone will send back 4-minute long ones. I'm like, oh my God, please don't do that. That's too much. But I actually tell people, send me text, I will send you voice. But yes, I will answer questions. And even if you just, you know what? Message Nathalia and let her know you enjoyed this podcast, assuming you did. Or if you hated it and you're like, don't ever put a male guest on here again, let her know that too, okay? Thank you, guys.
I love it. Thank you so much, Andrew, and I appreciate your time.
Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week. But let me ask you, what was your aha moment in today's episode? I would love to know. You can leave me a comment or voice message at the link in the show description. You can also follow me on Instagram and let me know what topics you want to hear more about or who I should have on the show. As for today, this is it for today, guys. I'll see you back next week for another episode of the Unfiltered Fit Life podcast.